The first thing you're going to do when you get your clay is you're going to take that rectangle and change it to more of an oval shape by banging the clay in the palm of your hands. Then you're going to take your wooden needle tool and poke a hole in the donut in the middle and start kind of wiggling it back and forth. You can do that on both ends. After you get your hole started, you're going to go back and forth between, you can use your finger, you can use the toothbrush, you can get the wooden needle tool and use that again. Go back and forth between making your hole bigger and kind of smoothing out the excess clay that pops out onto your donut. Now that you have your hole the way you like it, you're going to be able to take your donut and shape it into the shape that you want. I'm wanting mine round, so I'm rolling it around a little bit. Also, since we kind of started out with a rectangular prism and not really a rounded shape, you can take your finger and roll around on the edges to kind of change that rectangular and give it more of a rounded form. After I smeared the edges for a while, I still didn't think it was rounded enough, so I started pinching around. You can see I'm just kind of carefully pinching. I don't want it to go to a point, but I do want my donut to be a little bit more rounded. And then you can just take it on the mat and roll it, or smooth it with your hands. I spent kind of a long time smoothing my donut because I want it to look as realistic as possible. Maybe somebody will think my donut is real and try to eat it. I don't know. Maybe I could fool somebody. But because I want it realistic and nobody likes a crunchy, hard, lumpy donut, you want a nice, smooth, fluffy donut, I took a lot of time to smooth out all those little clay boogers and all that stuff that's hard and lumpy. If you have some extra clay left over that's come out of the middle of your donut, you can use that, or we can get some new clay. But you're going to decide what kind of donut do you want. I wanted to have a nice icing drizzle along the top of mine, so I'm going to get some extra clay and roll it into some coils. To make a coil, it's just like making a Play-Doh snake. You're going to cut a long piece, and then you're going to use your hands to go back and forth and roll it back and forth. You can do it straight on the mat. You can do it between your hands, holding it up in the air. Any way that you find is comfortable. Now, in order to get my icing to stick onto my donut, I have to score and slip. And we're going to use the toothbrush for scoring and slipping this time. And so what I'm doing is I'm just going to get my toothbrush wet, and that's in the slip, and I'm going to mark up my donut, and you can say the rhyme if you want. Scoring is boring, but I make lots of lines, and that's with the toothbrush. Kind of do it a little bit rough so it makes lines. Slipping is dipping, but I like it just fine. That's where you dip your toothbrush into the slip. And then the last part, smoothing is soothing. It erases the lines. If you have some parts sticking off the end, make sure and smooth those down so that they'll stick nicely onto the donut. Now I want to make some little sprinkles. So I'm making a teeny tiny little coil just using the tip of my finger, and I'm going to use one of my tools to cut up some little sprinkles. Roll it again so it has like a nice edge for the sprinkle, and then I'm going to score and slip those little guys on just like I did with the icing. And if you have these small parts like I do, make sure that you press it on really well and kind of smooth at least a little bit of each piece so that it won't just fall off later on in the kiln. You guys make sure when you're doing your donuts that you use a ton of creativity. Make these different from everybody else's if you can. Think about what is the most delicious donut you would like to have, or maybe you just want to make a crazy artsy donut, and go ahead and use your problem solving to add coils, add decoration. You can use your tools to mark on things and to make it look just how you want. When you're done, we need to flip it over and add your initials, and then we're going to let these dry on the blue trays. Next time, after they've been bisque fired, we will glaze these and put them in the glaze kiln. So this is a dipping glaze. This is a brown dipping glaze, and glazes do turn out different colors. This is our Shino. They do turn out different colors. So this brown, well, first of all, when I opened it, I gave it a few stirs with the handy dandy Holy Plunger, and then stirred up some of that sediment that's on the bottom. And once I've got to that point, now I'm ready to start dipping. But I also had to prepare my sculpture. So I have my donut, and he's been bisque fired. And I went ahead and put wax on the bottom of mine and on yours. And this brown color, because you know, donuts have the beautiful glaze, but they also have the cake color that's underneath the glaze. So to make our donut color underneath, this is the brown. This is the color that that brown is going to turn into. And then we'll put our sparkly sprinkles and glazes on top. And the wax has just melted away in the second firing. So this person accidentally glazed the whole thing, but then they just put more sprinkles on top. This person just glazed up to here, and then that left it white so that they could add more colors. So what you're going to do with yours, hold it like this. We're going to hold it with the wax down, and yours are thicker, so it should be okay. You're going to push it down in there so it doesn't go up over the top. Give it a few shakes, and then see how the glaze just beats up there. I'm going to use a wet sponge that has been wrung out, and I would, if I wasn't holding my camera, I would just wipe the sponge on the donut, but this is working okay too. So you want to come over here to this station. Don't have a sopping wet sponge. A wet, damp sponge that's been wrung out as much as you can. And then you're going to wipe that glaze off. You can go ahead and put it down and rinse off your fingers. And then you're going to go to your table and use the color glazes to glaze the top of your donut. We're using these stroke and cloak glazes, and you can see that the test tile is very similar to the color that is in the bottle. So that helps us give a big clue. It will turn shiny, and just like the little guinea pig. See, he's, this is a black, this is this black. See how it dries like a gray color, but it really is going to turn black. So these are the options that you guys have, and these are the colors that they're going to be. What we're going to do this time is we've got them all in these watercolor palettes, one for each table. If you run out, you just raise your hand and I will come refill it. So we're going to use these brushes, are our glaze brushes. There's some thicker ones and some smaller ones depending on what area of your tile that you're working on. We never glaze the bottom. We don't have to worry about that because it's waxed. And the wax will burn off in the kiln. And then you want to make sure that you put 2 coats of glaze on your donut. Otherwise, the glaze color will not be shiny. So that's what this tile kind of shows us. The top is 1 coat. It's not shiny, it's kind of rough, and it's not a dark color. So I'm going to go ahead and glaze 2 coats. I'm going to try to go around the icing and then do that in another color. Let's say if you want to use white on something, then I would recommend, well, you definitely need to, if you're going to use white, you don't want to leave it just the color of the clay, because it's not going to look nearly as good when it comes out of the kiln as it does right now. And it's going to be rougher and a little bit more yellow. So if you want white, then you need to glaze it with white. Even if it doesn't show up now, I promise it will show up when it comes out of the second firing. Since we're sharing this palette of glaze with everybody at our table, make sure you give Mr. Brush his nice relaxing bath between each color. And like when I pull that out, there's some glaze on the brush, so I'm just going to go ahead and wipe it on the side, get all that off. If you need to give him 2 baths, go ahead. And then now I'm ready to get another color for the top part of my icing.